At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Shashank Shah and the Obicon team for giving this opportunity to me to speak on a very different kind of topic. I've been used to speaking about the advantages of reversal of diabetes, medical reversal, but today I'm going to be talking about the limitations of this approach. And I think the one person who can speak about it is a person who's actually doing it. So if you're doing it, you know the limitations. So I'm going to talk about how it is done and the limitations and why it is not being widely adopted. So this will be the overview of my talk where I speak about what actually is the definition of reversal, medical reversal, and the principles that are used for this medical reversal of diabetes and the chances of success and what determines this kind of success, and then the limitations and conclusions. So definition of reversal, it is not uniform and there is no general consensus for it. But though the exact criteria are being debated, most people agree that when the A1C is under 6.5 for a good length of time, without the use of medication, that would qualify as reversal of diabetes. There are terms such as partial and complete. A complete reversal is not even pre-diabetic, so it should be below 5.7, and that's how we have various definitions of reversal. But suffice it to say that a general definition would mean that no diabetes and no medication, that would qualify as reversal. Now, to understand the limitations, we need to first know what the principles are and what the methods that are being used for medical reversal, and then only we can know what the limitations are. So the basic principle of medical reversal of diabetes is calorie restriction. So whatever be the modality, whatever be the composition, the caloric restriction is supposed to be the key point which will take a person towards reversal of diabetes. So I'm going to just quote two studies here because they are a little longer term and they are studies that have been quoted very often, and they've been in talks and in the journals in a big way, and have shown good results. So all of us know about the Look Ahead study, which had an intensive lifestyle intervention as against standard care, in which this included caloric restriction and increased physical activity. And then, of course, we all know about the more recent direct trial, which had low calorie meal replacement diet, which was around 825 to 853 calories for 3 to 5 months, followed by stepwise reintroduction and a long-term weight maintenance program. And evidence suggests that this kind of an approach of low-calorie diet is effective in reversing diabetes in the short term up to 2 years, and its effectiveness was predominantly demonstrated in those with shorter duration since diabetes diagnosis. There's not too much evidence for this kind of a medical reversal beyond 2 years, and there is a little bit, but not too much. But these two mainstream studies have shown us that up to 2 years, yes, you can have this kind of reversal. The other approach, other than calorie restriction, is carbohydrate restriction. It's very interesting to note the history of carbohydrate restriction in diabetes down the years. So you have way back in 1923, before the discovery of insulin, this paper, which tells us that low carbohydrate diets were the most frequently prescribed treatment for diabetes. Obviously, there was nothing else, so they were prescribing low carb. And then later on, a diet low in fat, which by default is high in carbohydrate, became the standard recommendation. I'm not going to go into the details whether this approach was right or wrong, but this is what happened. Low fat came into vogue, which necessarily meant high carb. And then with the development of exogenous insulin and later the low fat paradigm, rather than preventing elevations in glucose, the goal became maintenance of blood sugar by giving these medications and not paying that much attention to the carbohydrate. So which meant that we do not really prevent the glucose from rising. We allow it to rise, but bring it down with the help of medication. This is what happened over a period of time. But now what has happened? There is now a resurrection of that low carbohydrate era. We're coming back full circle, and this full circle says that low carb has recently been endorsed as an eating pattern by the ADA and the EASD. So now people accept, the guidelines also accept that low carb is back and it should be one of the approaches. So the Veterans Affairs Department of Defense, these guidelines also recommend carbohydrate restriction as low as 14% of energy intake in its most recent guidelines. So now somewhere there is a resurgence of the low carbohydrate diets that have been coming in. Now these are separate trials, 32 separate trials examining carbohydrate restriction as a treatment for type 2 diabetes. So you can see here that because there is a heterogeneity in the methodology and the definition of what exactly constitutes low carbohydrate, it's very difficult to interpret these studies, and hence the evidence is supposed to be limited. So we can't really say that type 2 diabetes is reversed by low carb diet because this evidence is so heterogeneous and the definition itself is so varied. But in a recent systematic review of low carbohydrate diets, it appears that the greatest improvements in glycemic control and greatest medication reduction, which we call reversal, have been associated with the lowest carbohydrate intake. So as I said, these are the two approaches. Low calorie is of course important, but low carbohydrate also is one of the approaches towards reversal of diabetes. What is the percentage of success and what are the factors that determine the success in these kind of medical reversal of diabetes diets? So if you look at the success rates, what you can see here are 2-3 important studies which I have put in, and you can see here that the direct trial is the one that has the best results. We all know that in the look ahead study, although it was intensive lifestyle modification, the caloric intakes were not as low as they were in the direct. Of course, they had more number of patients. So this is at 1 year and 2 years. As I said earlier, we have data up to 2 years for medical remission of or reversal of diabetes. And the direct study trials are quite impressive. You have 46% reduction at remission in 1 year, and at the 2 years, the remission rate was 36%. So it's quite impressive, and more needs to be done. And we need to see what this is going to be down the line, maybe 5 years later or 10 years later. Lower baseline A1C. Now I was going to tell you about what improves the chances of success in medical reversal of diabetes. So obviously a lower A1C at baseline, greater level of weight loss. The more weight you lose, the more chances of reversal. Shorter duration of type 2 diagnosis. This is uniform across all the studies. And lack of insulin use at baseline. So in fact, in the direct study, insulin users were not included in the study at all. And this predicted higher remission rate in the look ahead study. And diabetes remission, again, according to this study, was more likely shorter diabetes duration, lower A1C, and people taking fewer medications and no insulin. So these were the chances. This is the chance of success that you can get if you are trying to do medical reversal. What about the low calorie ketogenic diet versus the low calorie diet? What happens to the remission if you're using a low carb diet? Now, a low carb diet often veers towards ketogenic diets. So what are the remission rates when you use the low carbohydrate approach? The slide that I showed you previously was a low calorie approach. Now, this is the low carbohydrate approach. And these are the studies that we have. And you can see here that we had the duration of the study from 24 weeks right up to 2 years. So here again, the maximum duration that we have of evidence is for 2 years. The reversal rates are quite impressive in these kind of diets, even more than simply a low calorie diet. So you have 95% versus 62%. And this 62% is for low calorie, whereas 95% is for low carbohydrate. 55% versus 0 in one particular study, 78% in another, 54% in another. And in this particular study, you can see that the retention rate at the end of 2 years was 74%, which is quite impressive and quite contrary to the belief that these diets are difficult to adhere to. So this is 2-year data, and the retention rate is also quite impressive. So these are the remission rates and chances of success with the low calorie approach, and this is with the low carbohydrate approach. Most studies that you can see above in this table have utilized ad libitum intake in the carbohydrate restricted arm. By ad libitum intake, I mean the calories are not looked at. So they're just given the ketogenic diet and the calories are not calculated, and perhaps because the calories are not restricted, the retention rate could be higher. And despite the fact that ad libitum intake was allowed, spontaneous caloric restriction occurred in these studies. Bone mineral density, which is supposed to be a huge problem in ketogenic diets, has been found to be unchanged despite significant weight loss after 2 years of a ketogenic diet intervention, and there is this evidence for it. So it appears that at least up until 2 years, ketogenic diets are safe, they cause good bit of remission, and this is the data that we have. The limitation is that we have data for only up to 2 years as of now. So now let's come to the limitations of this kind of an approach. In fact, both the approaches. So this is for a low calorie diet. So let us look at the limitations of a low calorie diet that is used for remission of diabetes. Extreme heterogeneity is there, and there is a questionable long-term adherence as evidenced by the number of studies that we have seen, and I have shown you some evidence here. And unfortunately, the weight loss is not maintained in the long term. So you do not maintain the weight loss, the diabetes comes back. So you can remain reversed in diabetes as long as you can maintain the weight loss that one has achieved. Secondly, a substantial level of caloric restriction is needed. 600 calories, 800 calories, this is not easy to achieve. And this much caloric restriction is required to get reversal of diabetes. So a standard diabetic diet does not cause that amount of weight loss, and hence a standard diabetes care does not cause reversal. So for reversal, you require huge weight loss, and for that, you require a substantial level of caloric restriction, which is a limitation. Then lifestyle intervention with this kind of severe energy restriction may have some deleterious effects on body composition and physiology, though I have shown you evidence to the contrary in one of the previous slides, but this has to be looked into. Then the micronutrient deficiencies, this is with any approach, be it bariatric surgery, be it medical reversal, micronutrient deficiencies are a concern, and you would have to keep monitoring and kind of supplementing these kind of things, and the patient has to watch out for these deficiencies. This slide which I'm showing you, this is the most important limitation of medical reversal of diabetes, and that is physiological and metabolic adaptation towards weight loss. So it pushes the body towards weight regain. So this adaptation of the body in response to caloric restriction may shift the energy balance and hormonal regulation of weight towards weight regain after weight loss. And this kind of adaptation is usually not seen after bariatric surgery, but it is seen after weight loss, which is done on in a medical way. And this is going to be the biggest problem for us. As you can see in the STAMPEDE trial of 150 patients, you have 3 arms: sleeve gastrectomy, bypass, and medical reversal. So these two are clubbed together actually in the 3 arms, that is LCD, that is low calorie diet, LC is low carbohydrate diet. As you can see over here, metabolic adaptation occurs. There is more weight loss obviously with bariatric surgery, but you can look at the difference between low calorie diet and low carbohydrate diet, and you can see that low carbohydrate diet fares better than simply a low calorie diet. So this is what adaptation is all about, and this is just one slide I'm showing you which tells us that the gut hormone changes persistently oppose caloric restriction weight loss. And as you can see, ghrelin gradually increases, and the satiety hormones which are there, they gradually go on reducing. And this hormonal change occurs after caloric restriction. That means you've had weight loss, and then your hormones all go in the opposite directions and take you towards weight regain. And this is one of the biggest limitations of medical reversal of diabetes. Now, the low carb diets which are there, the limitations of this. So what I showed you now was the limitations of the low calorie diets. This is the limitation of the low carb approach. Long term hard outcome data are lacking. We don't have outcomes, and we have data only up to 2 years. Transient rise in uric acid, then blood urea nitrogen transient rise. So of course the kidney function is not affected, but these are some of the concerns that doctors may have, the patients may have, and this could be one of the limitations. Now coming to the most important part, why do diabetologists or doctors not adopt medical reversal of diabetes as much as it should be? One is there is disbelief and mistrust. They simply do not believe that this is possible and this may not be maintained long term, and hence they may not agree for it. Second most important thing is in diabetes guidelines, A1C is the goal. Good A1C is the goal. Reversal has not yet come in the guidelines as a goal for diabetes management. And if your treatment is guideline driven, reversal does not feature in it. That is one of the most important things. The other thing is standard care of diabetes does not lead to diabetes reversal. And standard of care is taught to us right from medical college. Hence, it is easier to follow. The guidelines are there, you follow the guidelines and you're done. But reversal of diabetes has not yet made its way into the proper guidelines, and hence doctors do not want to adopt it because, as I said, reversal is not a goal in any of the guidelines, and people who want to follow the guidelines may not want to adopt reversal of diabetes as an option of treatment for their patients. The other reasons for not adopting medical reversal of diabetes is lack of nutrition knowledge needed for it. One has to know a lot about the fats, the carbohydrates, the proteins, which is often left only to the nutritionist, and the treating physician or diabetes doctor may not have enough knowledge of nutrition that is required for reversal of diabetes. The other thing is immense effort is needed for counseling and follow-up. First of all, to make the patient understand what reversal is. Secondly, to tell him to take it up, go on such a low calorie diet, how it is going to help him. This kind of counseling requires a lot of time and effort, and the physician may not be willing to invest in that kind of effort. So that is one of the limitations. The another limitation is the team effort. You actually need a separate team that takes care of patients undergoing a reversal program. You would need the obesity physician. You may even need a bariatric surgeon. You may, just to give that knowledge, you will need one or two nutritionists. You will need a coordinator, maybe a social worker, maybe a psychologist. So it's a big team effort, and it may not be possible for every doctor or diabetologist to build such a team to dispense this kind of a program. Then this kind of a program can be expensive. It can be really expensive, as seen in the direct trial. Liquid meals are given. So these kind of liquid ready-made meals can be expensive. Investigations that are needed at baseline and at follow-up, micronutrient deficiencies, those supplements, the charges of the doctor, the nutritionist, all of this can make a reversal program pretty expensive, and that's why it may not be adopted. Lastly, weight loss maintenance after that particular weight loss period, that may require pharmacotherapy. So as I said earlier, hormonal changes do not support maintenance of weight loss. They try to take the person back towards the old weight. And hence, at that point of time, pharmacotherapy may be needed to maintain that weight loss. So the doctor may not be willing to do that, the patient may not be willing to take it, and this can be one of the limitations of treatment or reversal of diabetes by medical therapy. So these are the different physiological problems and the physician problems in dispensing this kind of a reversal program. And that is the reason that many doctors and diabetologists may not be taking up the reversal program, although we do have evidence, at least in the short term, that this can be done. Unfortunately, with the burgeoning type 2 diabetes epidemic, not all patients who need it may reach a bariatric surgeon and may not be able to get bariatric surgery done for a variety of reasons. And hence, Medical reversal of diabetes is an option in such situations and should be tried, and more evidence needs to be collected over a period of time. So to conclude, while both the low calorie diet and low carb dietary approaches are convincing for reversing diabetes in the short term, up to 2 years, long term maintenance is still not proven. There is limited available data supporting long term maintenance of weight loss itself. So we don't have enough data for reversal, and we know that weight loss itself may not be maintained and its associated glycemic improvements in response to low calorie diet. Long-term adherence to a low-carb diet will likely remain an obstacle, though we do have data that there is good retention even at the end of 2 years. Though the current body of evidence supports and suggests that bariatric surgery is most effective with prolonged remission, concerns associated with surgical complications, treatment cost, and complete lifestyle modification after surgery, there's no escape from that. These remain challenges. So the final word is that the current standard of care may be suitable for some, but others would surely choose reversible if they understood there was a choice. This choice needs to be given, and that is why more and more people need to adopt this method. And the choice can only be offered if providers are not only aware that reversal is possible, but they must have the education needed to review these options in a patient-centric discussion. So limitations are there, but the limitations can be overcome only if there is sufficient knowledge, and then this option can be offered. Of course, we need longer term studies, we need evidence for long-term remission or reversal. So thank you very much.